Hello and welcome to the Stafford Connect podcast. I'm Tom Cohen. 2026 marks America's 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. There's a big celebration planned to mark this milestone. Like the 200th anniversary years ago, there's also quite a bit of coordination among the national, state, and local organizations for this event. On this episode, we'll talk with local archaeologist and historian Dave Muraca about the 250th and what events are planned to celebrate it. Dave is part of the administrative staff for the George Washington Foundation and the director of archaeology at George Washington's Ferry Farm. He brings a lot of information and experience to the discussion, and we're glad he's here. Welcome, Dave. We're really happy to have you here.
It's great to be here.
And you're a fixture in Stafford. You've been here and a major player around here for quite some time. So why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Okay. So I grew up in Newport News, and that led to me ending up working for Colonial Williamsburg, and I was in their archaeology department for about 18 years. And then I got asked to come up to Ferry Farm and see if I wanted to run the archaeology dig right after the foundation took over. And I said yes. I had been working on a special approach to understanding 18th century farms, and I was eager to try it out. And so Ferry Farm looked like the perfect answer, and I've been here for 25 years.
Wow.
In the meantime, I live in downtown Fredericksburg with my wife and two daughters. Both are in college, so I'm very poor, and two dogs, and one dog and two cats.
Oh, wow. And it is amazing the work that you've done for the foundation. Anything in particular you want our listeners and watchers to know about the George Washington Foundation? Because it's not just Ferry Farm, which a lot of us know about, but it's also other elements in our community.
Right. So we have two sites, one historic Kenmore and the other is Ferry Farm. It's weird. We're over 102 years old, but because of Ferry Farm, we're like a startup. And so a lot of things we're trying to get off the ground. And when I arrived at Ferry Farm, there was only grass there. There was just a sea of grass. And if you go by today, it looks pretty good compared to a sea of grass. There's the reconstructed house. There's a reconstructed slave quarter and a support building for the kitchen. And now we're working on the kitchen. And so that's probably the next thing to go back up on the landscape.
Wow. It's just amazing how you all have made it grow over the years.
Yeah, it's going really well. I mean, you never know what you're going to get in archaeology, if you're going to be disappointed or not. But that site has just been fabulous. And so it reflects its fabulousness.
And speaking of fabulous, America hits 250 years this year. And there's different levels and different things. The nation's doing stuff, the state's doing stuff, local groups are doing things, and others. So if you could give us sort of a flavor for what's going on the different levels, and then we can get really into what's going to happen in the Stafford and Fredericksburg area.
Okay. So there are 4 different levels of involvement with the 250th. And so on the federal level, in 2016, Congress created a commission to run programs and then put a nonprofit beside of it so it can sort of raise money and do things for it. And then the White House has its own initiative. It has a long title to it, but essentially it's putting on programs mostly around the DC area. And so the congressional one, I think, funnels money to the state. And so now you've bumped down to the next level. And the state is doing a couple of different things. They are, first of all, they put together a museum, a traveling museum that localities can reserve. And so when that's in your area, I encourage you to go visit that. And the other thing is there's a booklet or a pamphlet that it's called a passport that the state has put together, and 70 museums across the state. It's your guide to those museums. It's a discount, and it's a great way to just explore what Virginia is doing on the 250th. the state takes the federal money and passes it to the localities, and that could be a regional or just a county or a city. And uh, local institutions apply for that money and get it. And then the state is also doing, they're putting together all the marketing for this. And then at the local level, you have counties and cities finding their institutions that are interested in participating and sort of organizing them. And then at the very bottom is our local institutions like museums and libraries and civic groups. And they all pool together and make events that the public can see.
It seems to be, I was very young, not horribly young, but at the 200th anniversary, but it didn't seem to be this well thought out and coordinated.
So so I was in high school when the bicentennial
Ditto.
happened. So I don't have a lot of knowledge about what happened, but I can tell you that because I lived outside of Williamsburg, they thought that was going to be the hugest thing, and so they got 2.44 million people in Williamsburg alone, and so it was a huge deal. And the parks, like they paved a lot of the dirt roads in some of the parks at Yorktown. And just a lot of sprucing up went ahead of that. I would say that was a bigger effort than this one. This one's effort is very focused on events. The other one worked on infrastructure.
Right, and that makes sense. I was in Boston, and we had the tall ships coming.
Right.
And we had, of course, the Esplanade concert. But I don't remember in high school there being any information about tying in to different levels and all that, which is interesting. And it's sort of the reason why it's our area and our state's important is because while the Bostonians were pushing New Englanders and pushing for independence, we needed Virginia to be with Richard Henry Lee and others to be the ones that pushed it, and Jefferson to push it over the hump to get it.
So Virginia is really wealthy in a couple of different ways. One is that it's just wealthy. It's very well to do. And so you always need Virginia if you're going to form a group, you want Virginia in on it. And then the other thing that we were able to do is produce incredible leaders that from mostly from this part of the world, Northern Neck and Stafford, and we produced just an amazing assortment of people who all came together at a particular time to fix a particular problem, and that problem, turned out that solution turned out to be eventually creating the United States of America.
Right, it's amazing,
just amazing.
And it's something to celebrate the path forward. So if we look at anything particular, first of all, in the state that you want to mention before we start looking into Stafford and Fredericksburg?
So there is stuff all around the state, and a lot of the bigger museums have gotten very excited about this, and they have lots and lots of programs. And if you were going to find that, va250.org is the website, and they have a calendar on there, and it runs in calendar order. So if you have a particular month you want to go to, you just go to that month and see it. Lots and lots of things going on locally. We're involved with a partnership that changes for each event, but it always has a couple things that are in common. So, for example, on September 12th and 13th, the Slave Dwelling Project is coming to town, and that's a maybe 2.5 day event where we've invited a group started by a guy named Joseph McGill. And he was in the Park Service in the South, and he wondered what it would be like to sleep in a slave quarter. And so he did, and it was very moving for him. And then he did it again. The next thing you know, there's a nonprofit, and they do demonstrations of slave activities like outdoor cooking and laundry and storytelling, and they are coming to town in September 12th and 13th. And so the partners for this are Stafford County, Fredericksburg. NPS is the coordinator for it, the battlefield site. Every local museum, so that's FAM, Gary Melcher, Mary Washington. Who am I leaving out? Leaving somebody. Oh, us. Oh yeah, that group, and then so you'll be there's a series of events, and there'll be some of them are demonstrations, some of them are lectures, some of them involve food, right? And there's even a camping opportunity to camp on a site in Stafford. And
Oh, wow.
So just depending on how involved you want to get, and this is just going to be a fabulous event, and that's going right now. The other program that we're doing right now is involves Stafford County Historical Society and us, and it's Drums Along the Rappahannock. And there's a couple of things that make this program incredibly special. Number one is the Old Guard Fife and Drum are coming, and so that's an Army band that plays military music from the 18th century, and they march and drum, and they're coming. There are other demonstrators coming. Loyal Drums is coming. There's a blacksmith that's coming. I can't remember his name right now, but and then here's the special part: it's free, and so we don't have a lot of free events, but this will be one that's on, I think that's on April 20th, I think, April 25th. And so, there'll be more demonstrators at the same time. And so great for the family, great, sort of just clean, wholesome introduction to 18th century activities of all kinds.
And then will that be at the Ferry Farm? Probably?
That's at Ferry Farm as well, right. There's a lecture series that's going on throughout the library is up to its eyeballs in this activities. And so they have a lecture series that's already started, and it's at different libraries throughout the year. And so you need to go to their library, their website to find out about if you want to see a particular lecture, but that's always going too.
Neat. And then you have the July 4th itself.
Yes. So normally we have that is our biggest program of the year, and we get we can get between 1,000, depending on the weather, between 1,000 and 2,000 people to come to that. So we wanted to do something special. So we said, okay, we're going to want to partner with our partners and turn it into something really big. And we need a new way to sort of organize it. So the theme is Americana, and that opens up. You can now leave the colonial world and go to anything that really reflects America. And so the Potawatomi are coming, FAM, the Washington Heritage Sites, I think James Monroe, and us. And then groups like the SAR and the DAR. There's we normally have like a little quilters competition. There's a big quilting competition in Fredericksburg on July 4th, but not at Ferry Farm, where they're going to have over 250 quilts that reflect history of Virginia. And that opens on July 4th, but will run throughout, into the fall. And so for us, along with those partners, we'll have people that are, so James Edwards is coming. He's a retired Colonial Williamsburg interpreter, actor, reenactor, and he's going to portray what the life of enslaved. He's going to talk about the life of enslaved sailors, and that's a topic that never gets discussed. And I was like, I knew he did this, and so, but I knew that wasn't it. He never got to talk about it, and so that's how I lured him in, is to said, all right, let's talk about sailors that are enslaved, and so he's coming to do that, and then Will Gravitt's band, which is a regionally known band, but most times they play in DC. And so locals don't, he lives in Fredericksburg, but Fredericksburg people don't get to see him very often. And so he is headlining the stage activities. We're going to have 2 stages. And so lots and lots of great activities. And so we're very excited about this.
And that's some of those, as you said, with quilters and stuff, they're going to be all over the area.
So that quilters, they're at the quilting museum, Fredericksburg Quilting Museum, which I didn't really know was a thing until this year. So anyway, yeah, they're going on. So
Oh,
it's going to
wow.
be great.
And then is the city itself doing anything specific? Because I know you're all working together.
Right, but so they'll still have their craft show over in Riverside Park in the morning, and then there are still multiple fireworks availabilities that we are not participating in.
My dog appreciates that.
You're welcome.
And to all the farm animals in our area. All right, and then and you said there's different things. So we've talked a little bit. There's some things that are happening. Also, I noticed on the website, I mean, different races and other different things.
Right. Those are all the normal events they have. They have a kids race that's going in the morning, and then I'm not sure what else they're doing. The organizational meeting for that hasn't quite happened yet. So, but it's happening. So there will be something to do downtown Fredericksburg
Right.
at Riverside Park.
Oh, nice. Oh, good. And then any other events or things that you pop up that you think are sort of percolating that people might want to keep their eyes open for?
There's too many to count. That's why the calendar is so important. Used to be, it was like you'd find the section that would say, what's happening this weekend? Well, now you need to add that calendar to your events, to your searches, so that you can figure out exactly what's happening in your area.
And is the best one the va250.org?
Yes.
Great, as well as checking out your own library one
Yes,
and others,
right.
and other ones.
Yes, there should be multiple marketing. If you can't swing a cat without hitting marketing for the 250th when it all gets going.
It was one thing that was interesting that I looked up before when we talked about having you come, is that, of course, I'll say it according to the internet, but between the 4th of July and the 17th, the Declaration made its way from Philadelphia down to Williamsburg. Which is sort of interesting because I know some of the roads in here are Constitution trails, so you'd think that the Declaration may have taken the same pathway to get through, to give a copy down to Williamsburg, which was then the capital.
So you are now past me. I have nothing to add. It's very interesting, but I don't know anything about
Right,
that.
and I was just wondering. I just was thinking that that's pretty cool that if it's the old post road or the basic way to get from up north down to Williamsburg, it was through us. And it's sort of interesting to think that the a copy road.
Right. And so so the river is the main way of traveling in colonial times. And there is a road system, but it's not a very good road system. So George Washington, when he was at Mount Vernon, to come to Ferry Farm, he would cross the Potomac and ride through Maryland and then cross the Potomac again and then come down Route 3, which was King's Highway.
Yep.
And so that's a very famous road that runs from Georgia to New England.
Yes.
And
Yep.
so and then the road to the west comes through Ferry Farm, crosses the street, goes through the center of Fredericksburg, and then goes west. And so that's really the road system. And so you don't have a lot of choices. You just you're going to get on either a north-south road or you're going to get on an east-west road. And so
it's amazing. So, is there anything? I mean, I know there's one way that people can look at the internet and find information, and besides that in way, is there anything else that if people have ideas or thoughts that they can convey?
So I think the feds are doing an oral history project, and oral history projects are really they're very popular because they're very successful. And so it started with the World War I veterans, and there was just a little teeny effort to sort of capture them on video. And but by the time World War II veterans started to get a little older, there was a lot of it. They looked at that World War I experience and they said, yes, we're doing this. And so there are like 100 different World War II veteran oral history projects, and different people collect them and different people run them, but it's just an amazing collection of people's experience after World War II. And then, so after that, then people said, well, we can do oral histories about almost anything. And like Stafford did one, Tell Your Stafford Story, which was part of their 350th anniversary. And I think they got like 400 people to tell their story. And some of them are very long and detailed. Some of them are very famous people. Some of these are people that have a very small impact on the world, but they've all equally sort of get an opportunity to tell their Stafford story. And it was great for Stafford. And those are all on YouTube, and so you can watch them anytime you want. You just type in "Tell Your Stafford Story" YouTube, and it will take you to those 400 videos. And so I know the feds are trying to do that for. How did your 250th experience sort of change your life? And so that's what we're doing right now.
Right. And that's a good point about the Tell Your Stafford History, because that we can wrap that in there as well, and sort of promote that on both our page and what we're doing, because because part of the whole 250th is that, the impact everything has had in people's lives all the way through, so that that people telling their history is pretty salient to understanding why where we're at in this time.
And particularly since the connector was Stafford. And so it was just, it gave a chance for Stafford citizens to talk nicely about Stafford for the most part. So, and the people that did it, they clearly love Stafford. And
Right.
so, and some of it is old Stafford, but not all of it. Some of it is new Stafford too.
And it is much like the country. The county has shifted and changed over the years.
Right. No,
which is sort of, as you said, I always loved the story about the front, where the front of Washington's boyhood home is, which is, you can say, it's on the river.
Right.
It's not on the road.
Yes, that's right. In the 18th century, that was I-95 of its day. And so ships up and down that thing all the time. And if you wanted to go someplace, you had to get on a boat.
Right. So it's funny how that has shifted. Perceptions have shifted. You've said how the county and the city are sort of like been in the middle of a lot of the history of this country.
Yeah, without a doubt. So when I got here, I thought this was going to be a Civil War town. And then I found that the resources here really made it a colonial town. First of all, the architecture locally is fabulous. And then the proximity of Mary Washington College and the Smithsonian. So researchers from both those institutions live in the neighborhood and they study here. And so the Historic Preservation Department at the University of Mary Washington does a fabulous job of looking locally. And then you find Smithsonian was doing digs in Stafford County in the 70s and 80s. And then you had the Pocahontas story, and George Washington's lawyer's house is up in Marlborough Point. And it's an amazing collection, amazing bunch of resources that other places just don't have.
Right. And it's what we're finding is ever changing, as you said, with Ferry Farm. It started as a field.
Right.
And then we just keep finding more and more.
And the great thing about Ferry Farm is, if you read there's over 1,000 biographies about George Washington, and they all use the same set of records, particularly when he's young. It's a very small set. And so now we're adding a brand new data set, the archaeology, the material that we've recovered from their house and around their house, and used by the people that were enslaved, and adding multiple new layers to it. And so, like, for example, the belief that Mary was a mean shrew, none of that is, she has her bad moments like everybody does, but she's, my favorite thing a biographer says is, there's one biographer says, well, she's illiterate. And it's like, well, why do you think that? And it's like, well, they said because her handwriting is bad and she can't spell. Well, it's like that person has not spent much time in the 18th century. First of all, if you could write a letter, you're not illiterate.
Yeah, that's right.
Two, everybody's handwriting is terrible. And three, the alphabet hasn't been settled on. There's some letters that are still missing, and so you can't apply 20th century criteria and looking at the 18th century and come up with good conclusions. Well, we've been able to rewrite her story completely, and so we're very excited about that. And we've added tons and tons of things about how the Washingtons dealt with hardship and overcame adversity, and how Ferry Farm produced the man that George Washington would become.
Right. It's really fascinating. I mean, every time I go, I learn more and more.
And you come a lot.
I try. Well, it's great. I mean, if something's good, you go. I mean, all right. So is there any other events or anything else you think is worthwhile sort of bringing up about either what Stafford's doing in the city, the state, the nation, or anything that sort of percolates you? I mean, I didn't hear you describing we're going to have MMA on Ferry Farm.
No, you have to go to the White House for that. So you should there are some amazing things going on with this celebration. And so, you got to keep an eye on the national and the state. And so, and you will not be disappointed. There's something for you out there somewhere.
Awesome. That's great. And so as we sort of wrap up, usually I ask people to either relay a happy story or an anecdote or something about Stafford or the city, since you've moved over to the city from our wonderful George Washington district.
I did. When I first came to work, I lived at Ferry Farm.
Yeah.
So I had the best address. I was like, I'm living on 70 acres of George Washington owned on a river. So it was like, and my dog was very happy because there were all kinds of animals, and so
truly.
So the thing about Stafford that really makes me sort of proud is the community support for Ferry Farm. Every time I go talk, somebody will stand up and say, I saved Ferry Farm, and they're right. They did. I mean, it's like it took a village that it was an amazing collaborative effort on people that were in Stafford, in Fredericksburg, in Virginia, in the nation, and so I hear people describe it as the high point in historic preservation for the nation. They talk about the golden age, and they talk about Ferry Farm. And so, at the time that the developers of that property had never been resisted before for anything, much less for trying to save an archaeological site and for the community. And so I just appreciate the people of Stafford so much.
It is. And the work they did was just amazing. And the work you do is amazing too. I always enjoy seeing what you've been sort of steering and doing. And people should, if they get a chance to go to Ferry Farm or to take advantage of any of these events and see what has been done in our area. It's just amazing.
Well, thank you very much.
So thank you. And we appreciate you being here today. And we hope that you all will take part and celebrate the country's 250th anniversary. So that looks like that ought to do it for this edition of Stafford Connect. I urge you to check the websites for the various localities on our YouTube page. I want to thank you for joining us on this episode. We do appreciate you and hope you'll refer us to all your friends. And while we're talking about friends, we want to thank our friends at Tilly's Ice Cream for their continuing support of this program. Tilly's is located at the Ferry Farm Shopping Center at 215 Kings Highway. So next time you're in the area, stop in and treat yourself. You'll be glad you did. In our next episode, we are looking at having a discussion about the extension of electric power throughout the county to deal with the area's needs in electricity. Until then, I'm Tom Cohen, and you're listening to the Stafford Connect podcast. Stafford Connect is a River's Edge Media original podcast. You can listen to the show anywhere you get your podcast or catch the video on our YouTube channel. Stafford Connect, the conversation begins here.